Hey, thanks everyone for joining our new podcast. So I'm Dwayne Stroman, SPCT with Skillbook. Joining me is John Miller, SPCT with Icon Technology. John and I have known each other for many years. We've done a lot of brain bashing, a lot of thinking deeper. We have a daily session on most days where we just discuss really deep dive topics. One of the key things that we really like to focus on is how do you bring lean into product development? And everyone has a different definition of lean, different understanding. A big part of this podcast series is going to be helping you dive deeper into a number of different topics, different components of lean. What does it mean from a traditional standpoint? What have the industry experts been doing in manufacturing, supply chain, and in product development? And how do you apply it, especially to a product development enterprise? Software, for example, is probably the biggest one we will discuss. Obviously, it includes process, hardware, all those other things. But how do you apply lean, which was really developed by and for manufacturing and supply chain? How do you apply those really powerful concepts when you're developing products, designing solutions for customers? John, you and I have talked about lean product development an awful lot. What do you think really stands out in your mind as the difference between our understanding what you and I have experienced versus what most people think of as lean product development?
Well, and I think the first thing that, as you said, that really jumped out to me was in talking with folks, one of the things that I've heard so many times is lean says, cut it out, delete it. And I think that there's a huge misunderstanding from going from a stage gate, which is also called control gates or toll gates, but a gate-driven development process into a flow-based development process. And when people start talking about lean, they think they're just going to X out all sorts of stuff and just get rid of it because that's what they think lean is. And
cut the waste, right? Cut the waste.
no, it's not that. It's just cut it out. It's cut out engineering. It's cut out test. It's not cut out the waste. It's when they say lean and cut it out, they just mean we're just going to X out huge chunks of whatever.
See, I think
and they
that's
don't understand. They have to understand what is actually required to get not just flow of value, but to do it right.
Yeah.
Because you just said it. Lean is about identifying those delays and cut the delays out, not about cutting out any good engineering practices or the management practices or the whole product thinking practices. It's about cutting out delays between them. And I don't think people get it.
That's a great point, because where I was going is I've seen a lot of leadership management types that look at lean. I call it stopwatch lean. They want to go out and time and see who's fast, who's slow, all for the purpose of eliminating headcount. And even in Jones and Womack and lean thinking, they talk about that very topic. And they say, first of all, if you go with that approach, you're not going to incentivize anyone to find improvement opportunities because they think that the improvement opportunity they help you discover is eliminate their job. It's self-defeating. So they're not going to do that. But that's not what Jones and Womack and Toyota Production System and Lean in general recommends. It says, get people, everyone on the line in the development process, everyone involved in lean process improvement. And by doing so, as you free up time, they use that time to improve the product, to improve the system even further. It's a almost self-generating machine where you can create an improvement opportunity and use the savings, whether it's financial, time, combination, use that to find the next improvement and the next and the next and the next. And that's where principle number 5 from lean comes in. Pursuit of perfection. Now you actually can pursue perfection. You won't get there, but you can get really good.
And you brought up Womack. One of the lines that I'll remember from lean thinking is a challenge for a senior manager will always be, once you get everything you want out of your current capacity and you start to free up capacity, the challenge for a senior manager is, what are you going to do with that freed up capacity? Because laying people off is not supposed to be an option.
Yeah, and sometimes companies find out that they do have, unfortunately, dead weight. COVID, we had that issue where companies way overhired. And you and I have had some deep discussions about this. You've looked up the websites on layoffs and all those things. But the bottom line, one of the factors to the layoffs occurring right now is we overhired. Is it the only factor? Absolutely not. But it is a contributing factor. But when you look at product development, I challenge you to find a company that says, we have way more capacity than we need. We never have enough things to keep them busy. That's not what they say. They say we have way too much to do and we're not getting enough of it done. And they always say we don't have the capacity. And I hate the term resources applied to people, but we don't have the resources to get it done. Well, one of the main reasons, if not the key contributing factor, is because of the lack of efficiency in the development process. And that's what we're talking about. You were talking about removing the waste, not by removing the things you do, but improving how you do it and improving the handoffs, minimizing the handoffs, eliminating the wait states, the phase gates, as you said, between. That's what Lean talks about by removing waste, not removing valuable added steps.
Right. And when somebody says, and as a matter of fact, I was talking with some team folks a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about testing and automated testing and things like that. And they said, well, our senior management won't allow us to. And that was their story until we actually took some of those folks, got them in a discussion with those exact senior managers that they were talking about. And then the story changed, the conversation changed. And the senior managers, and by the way, when I use the word phrase senior managers, I mean, it could be somebody at the ELT or SLT or that portfolio level, but those senior folks driving what's going on. The conversation changed, and they said, the senior manager said, well, we didn't say that, but we want you to focus on doing things and doing the right things. And our words are so misinterpreted, and we've got to figure that out in Lean to say, let's not cut out the things that add value. Let's focus on decreasing those delays. And then once you start getting that, and we talk about that, the fastest way to get to market faster is to decrease those delays. But it's more than that. It's doing the right things while reducing those delays. And by the way, if a company isn't doing the right things when they're doing a phase gate approach, they're not going to magically pick them up when they're doing Lean. It's not going to get any better. So
not a magic pill.
It's not a magic pill. Yep.
Yeah. So therein lies one of the main issues that you and I talk about a lot, is the misunderstanding, again, that misunderstanding of what Lean means. We hear so many consultancy companies, blog articles, whatever, talk about agile software development and agile enterprise and agile all these things. And the reality is agile is incredibly powerful as a mindset. And there are a number of very powerful frameworks built on top of it, such as Scrum. But agile was always meant for the teams. It is a team construct. Now, can you apply a lot of the mindset to the entire organization? Yeah. But what's really missing, what we see missing far too often, is Lean. And when we start talking about Lean, we get various misunderstandings. One is the stopwatch Lean, as I mentioned, that people think, oh, yeah, okay, so we've done that. We pulled out our process flows and we mapped out, and this person's slower than this person. So we're trying to get rid of that person. No, no, no. That's not what Lean is about. Lean is a cooperative effort. It's collaborative, highly collaborative. In fact, a lot of the Agile Manifesto stemmed from Lean thinking. And so when you start thinking about where Lean has a practical application in product development, As you said, it's about understanding how value flows. As value flows through, there are steps, states that where we add value to it. You mentioned a lot of those: testing, architecture, design, and those are broken down into more steps, of course. But where the delays come in is not in the value add time. It's not in the touch time. It's in the delays in between. And it's the handoffs, the phase gates, the approval states, one of the most common, which is getting better now, but one of the most common is deployment approval. Well, not only do you have a delay for the approval to deploy, you have a delay in getting the deployment team to deploy it, because the teams are not able to deploy on their own because you don't have a healthy DevOps approach. DevOps, the foundation of DevOps, yes, is culture of shared accountability, but it runs on Lean. It doesn't run on automation. It runs on Lean. And automation provides some of the things that Lean needs to improve the flow of value. And that's where I think the misunderstanding is so powerful, is when people hear the word Lean, they get this picture in their mind, and it's anywhere from 15 to 180 degrees off center of what we're talking about.
And and we'll have to do a deep dive on this, not today, but so lean product development. Let's just go back to lean product development in general, and just think about what that means. A lot of folks who do, you just use the DevOps word, but a lot of folks who use DevOps are thinking we are doing DevOps in our software world, and what that means to us is we're going to do continuous integration.
Yeah. Automate the pipeline.
That's where they stop. But now think about the new product development. So you've got an organization. So if you've got an agile team, and if somebody implemented agile, you're focused on just that development team. But let's back up. Let's rewind, as John Cotter says. You've seen this. Rewind in that video, and let's just really talk about the stuff that goes on in product development. So it's got to go on in lean product development. So you've got market research, and you might say that's fuzzy front end, but we've got market analysis and customer analysis and collecting data and stuff like that. You've got alignment with where the company's going and with where your portfolio is going. You've got an idea of the market segmentation and the valuation of those different markets, because that's how you figure out where you're going to build. So you're doing some experiments focused on that. Companies are doing this. They're looking at their future horizons. What are we going to do tomorrow? We're seeing that with AI right now. What's Horizon 1 today? 5 years ago was Horizon 3, that same concept. But they've gotten rid of a lot of the other things, companies that are using it. You've got to have a vision for the product. You've got to have a strategy for the product. You've got to understand where that product's going. And these are all things about product development. So you've got planning horizon. What are we going to do today versus what's our next release? Which, by the way, let's be honest, most folks do a pretty bad job of getting flow-based thinking just about the release, because they just think we're going to release something in a year and a half, and that's where they stop.
Yeah.
But then you've got all the design stuff, the development stuff, the UI. That's all, the engineering side. You've got roadmaps to get there. You've got licensing. How are you gonna sell this thing? And we see that in the stuff we use on our computers today. Most folks are going to subscriptions. Heck, we're using Zoom. We pay for that on a yearly basis. So you've got costing and pricing. You have financial performance and ROI, which is really interesting because the folks at Scaled Agile just did that real options webinar the other day. But that's coming out as how do we tie this to real dollars? So now we've got the actual building it, and then you've got your releases and release management and all the customer support. That's whole product thinking. And that's, if you're going to do lean product development, we have to carry that into lean product development. And there's a lot of folks who are moving from an agile world that a lot of the words that I just tossed out are probably left on the wayside.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you talked about whole product development, about seeing all of that. I would argue you can't separate that from lean product development. It is the same thing. And that's what's missed quite often, is even when we start talking about bringing lean into your Agile organization. You've implemented Agile for the teams. You're not getting the benefits you thought you would get, you expected, and you're looking around saying, what's missing? And we keep saying lean is the answer. Lean is what's missing. Yeah, we've tried lean. We went in and we, looked at our process flows. We did this, we did that. No, it's the whole process. It's the whole part of product development. All the way, not just from designing a product, but from the strategy. How do we lean out the process of building and revising our strategy? We talk about enterprise agility. You've heard me say this. My favorite definition of an enterprise agility is companies making plans they expect to change. Very few companies today make plans that they expect to change. They want to get it locked in. And I don't want to go as far as the Gantt chart. We're really starting to move away from that. But they still want to have this confidence of, we have a plan we can stick to. The confidence should come from, we have a plan that's adjustable because we know we're going to learn things. The empirical data tells us that. We start to design a product or a solution and we go take a few steps forward and realize, oh, that's not quite it. But boy, we learned a ton. Now, if we learn how to pivot quickly and adjust from that, that's a key part of lean product development. It's not just eliminating the handoffs and wait states from one developer to QA to deployment. That's a part of it, but it's actually a small part of it. It's the whole picture.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's seeing that whole picture and it's learning how to optimize the entire system. Now, we hear a lot, Scaled Agile runs a quote of optimizing a component does not optimize the entire system. And that can be confusing. When you're talking about systems thinking and you want to optimize the entire flow from strategy to ideation to innovation to design to development to validation, deployment, feedback, telemetry, measurements, all of those things, when you're trying to optimize that, you have to see the whole picture, but you're going to tweak one knob at a time. Going in and changing a bunch of things at once gives you too many variables. You can't tell what's improving, what's not. And then people think, well, that sounds really slow. No, because those tweaks should show impact almost immediately within days, if not hours. And so you see an improvement. Great, that was good. Should we tweak that more or go on to the next knob or this one? That's really what lean thinking is all about, is finding that next knob to tweak, learning how to measure the impact. Should I keep tweaking it more or go to the next knob?
When you describe it like that, and I'm thinking about the knobs that most people tweak in their current, again, I want to fall back and start using the word waterfall all the time, but the right word for it is a phase gate approach, because there's so many big phase gates. But one of the things that happened over the years, and Cotter really got into this in his book Accelerate when he brought up that dual operating system. But so many organizations have created that structure to get more efficient within one functional area that, and you used the word that sub-optimization earlier, but now it's not just trying to get lean product development that's not sub-optimized, but it's also how do you get the knowledge and skills from those places in your organization that are not part of what you think should be part of lean product development. And I'm saying you're not thinking it, rather than saying, look, you just truncated it. But my word truncated, it's not like a magical word. It just says, how many folks have we worked with that said, we've identified our flow of value. And for our conversations, I'll use the phrase feature for that. How do we get a feature out the door? But for most organizations I've worked with, that feature development or the product development, the lean product development of that single feature is only one small portion of it, because it left out all those other things that we needed to talk about. It's isolated in that other functional area, and that's the area that we have to pull in the knowledge and skills from. And it might be the people, but it might be just the knowledge and skills. Who knows? Every organization is going to be different.
Well, you said something important. improving the process flow and finding a better process, that's a daily occurrence. It isn't finding the perfect process, it's finding the next version of it, the next iteration. I was looking up some of the Taiichi Ono quotes so that I can pull out the right one, but one of the favorite ones I have from Taiichi Ono, and if you're not familiar, he's considered the father of lean thinking with the Toyota production system, working with people like W. Edwards Deming. And anyways, Taiichi Ono has a quote, and I'm looking it up here, but essentially what he says is the process manual should be thrown away once a month because it is out of date. He's not saying don't have a process manual. He's not saying don't have a documentation of how the process works, how it flows. What he's saying is don't cast it in stone. You're going to be changing it so quickly that if you have a process manual at least once a month, it's out of date. Now, when you apply that to lean product development, it builds in that mindset of constantly looking for the next opportunity. You and I have talked about the two key different terms about relentless improvement, Kaizen and Kaikaku. Well, Kaikaku is that radical change. That's, if you're implementing SAFe, it's that launching an art. If you are implementing LPM, it's that first time you get LPM together and you start strategizing, very differently. But Kaizen is what really fuels the engine. Getting those relentless opportunities, those daily increments. And I think that's another area where people really struggle with the concept of lean. They think, let's go apply lean like it's tear off a piece of duct tape, put it on this spot, and we're good. It's not how it works. It's the what's next mentality. That was cool. What's next? That didn't work. What's next? Always asking what's next.
As you brought in Taiichi Ono, and I never know. I guess I never knew how to pronounce Mr. Toyota's name, and this is Ajay Toyota, so EIJI. But he was the CEO. He was the president and CEO in the 50s and 60s of Toyota. But he had a great quote, and I think this was in The Machine That Changed the World. I'm not positive about that. But he said, all value delivered to a customer is the end result of a horizontal process that runs across all those vertical organizations, whatever they are. When we start talking lean product development, that is our value stream. And I know other worlds might call it a value chain. That's okay. But, when we're calling it a value stream, it might look like a value chain, which is, again, different from what some improvement methodologies use the same word for, which gets kind of confusing. But look, we've got to figure out who are all the folks that we need to be involved as part of our lean product development to get the right thing out the door. And there's a lot of nuances in there, but we have to figure that out. And that's one of those big steps. And again, so as we're talking about this, we've mentioned Taiichi Ono and the Toyota production system, that's where the stuff comes from, translated into the US through folks like Womack and Jones and Leiker and Shook and all these other great researchers and authors. But we've got to figure out, how do we make this work in the world that we're working in today?
Yeah.
Which, because of the fast pace, companies have got to figure out how to move away from releasing something after 2 years of development, and how do you get something out the door faster? And that should be the focus of lean development.
And obviously that brings up the key topic that is on pretty much every manager's SLT, LT's mind is AI. How is it going to impact our business? What are we going to do with it? How does it help us improve? What happens if we don't make the right choices? Is lean implementation impacted by that? Of course it is. Absolutely. Can you, if done correctly, take advantage of AI capabilities to improve your lean implementation? Absolutely. Can you really mess it up big time? Yep, you can do that as well. I think that's probably our next conversation, John, is to talk about, we've had some pretty deep dive discussions on AI, but maybe just focus in on how can you take advantage of what AI offers to help with a lean implementation. I'm thinking metrics, assessments, uh, flow improvements, analysis, a number of different things you can use AI to help improve your flow process. But here's the problem. AI can't build a mindset. And lean is first and foremost a mindset. It is literally a mindset, as I said, of that was great, what's next? That didn't work, what's next? It's the what's next philosophy that's the basis of lean. And I was looking for some more quotes from Taichi Ono, and one of these that really applies: when there is no standard, there can be no Kaizen. This isn't talking about a loosey-goosey, no structure, no policy, no practice, no nothing. It's actually quite rigorous and it's quite disciplined. Lean requires a fair amount of discipline, but that discipline isn't to lock into a way of doing, it's to find the next way of doing from the baseline we have today. And that's what I think is also missing a lot of organizations, is whether it's the silos, the technology boundaries, whatever. We have different, very, very different ways of working. Well, that's what Agile is all about, is we get to choose. No, 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 that's not what it's about. That's not the idea. The idea is about collaboration and reflection and constant improvement. If you aren't at the common baseline, it's really hard to have continuous improvement. So if you want to add any final thoughts, John, and then I think we'll wrap this one up and get ready for our next conversation.
And probably for the next conversation, use the word standards, and again, tying it back to Taichi Ono. How many organizations have you been in? Actually, I won't ask you that question. I'll make a comment from my perspective. I cannot count the number of organizations I have been in when I'm working with somebody and I ask a question about their standards. Show me the standard that you want your engineers to be trained on and to follow, and that will be checked up on and improved upon. And from an outside consultant's perspective, I've also helped write a bunch of standards when companies don't have them, yet they're claiming they all follow their same coding standards and test standards and architectural standards and all these things. And then when pushed, they can't give it to me. They can't say, here is however we captured it. Here's how we train our people. So those standards, and we need to do a deep dive on that someday, but getting back to those standards, you can't improve it if you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So
you apply improvement opportunities and you don't even know how to apply them, let alone are they even improving at all. So, all right. Well, this is a good opening conversation, John. I'm looking forward to future conversations. I hope everybody that was listening is finding some good information. We had decided that for this intro, we wanted to be fairly high level. Expect that as we move forward, we're going to get fairly deep on some of these topics, and we'll try and take a topic. John and I tend to ramble a little bit, but as we pick a topic, we'll try and deep dive on that topic to give you what you're not hearing in blogs and other venues and quick videos. We want to give you that deeper thinking perspective. So that's it for now. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.